Hello and welcome to my Yellow Bench. I'm Liv Cropper, I'm a transformational coach, and this is Rooted, the human side of sustainability leadership. This podcast is for sustainability leaders who want to keep making an impact without losing themselves in the process. Every episode, I'm going to be talking with leaders about their roots in this work, the impact they're most proud of, the tough times they've faced, and how they've kept grounded along the way. Now, just to warn you, I'm going to be stretching the metaphor of rooted to its very limit, so please expect plenty of talk about roots, branches, and seeds of wisdom. If you're looking for a technical briefing, this isn't it. We're going to be going right beneath the surface, exploring what it means to be a sustainability leader today and how it feels to do this work. I hope you enjoy this episode. Take a seat. Today's guest on Rooted describes himself as an energy and sustainability geek, which I do think is true, but I would also describe him as an absolute powerhouse in the world of corporate sustainability, as well as a friend and a colleague. He leads sustainability work in some of the UK's biggest companies. He's been doing that for the last 15 years. He's worked in Sainsbury's, Vodafone, Lloyds, and now he's at Tide, the online business bank for SMEs, where he is the global net zero lead. He also has a very impressive array of extracurricular work that he does. So he's an assessor for Cambridge University. He's on lots of advisory boards. Also, I think he runs or co-hosts the People Planet Pint in Coventry. So all across the board, lots of extra things that he's doing. He's also a thoroughly nice person and loves to help others and mentor others and really helps with the sustainability community. So welcome to Rooted, Matteo Deidda.
Hi, Olivia, and thank you for having me today.
You're very welcome. It's lovely to have you. And I have to do a little promise to my listener that I'm not going to interview all of my friends on this podcast every single episode. But when I decided to start this podcast, I kind of knew that I wanted to start with you and have you as my first guest. So it's really nice to welcome you today.
Oh, yes. I'm looking forward to it.
So I guess where I want to start, and actually I'm just reflecting, I don't really know this from being your friend for all these years. I don't know the answer to this question, so I'm looking forward to it. Where did your roots in this work begin? What kind of drives your career journey?
Yeah, it's a good question to start because I think that I've been doing this for almost 15 years now, or over 15 years actually. I've always worked in sustainability, and I'm one of those person that I'm indecisive about quite a few things. I'm quite clear from a career perspective. I've worked in sustainability for the last 15 years, and it's very likely that I'm going to work in sustainability for the next 15 years. It's really what my passion is and what I really enjoy doing. But the starting point for me wasn't necessarily an environmental side or like a care for the planet. Of course, there was that element as part of the mix, but the big driver for me was actually innovation and technology. So I studied at university. I studied civil engineering a lifetime ago, and so like really designing of buildings. And I felt that lots of the science and the technology that I was studying and applying then in my work as a civil engineer was very old. Like they were decades or hundreds of years old. And on the other side, I saw all this work happening on sustainability and making buildings more sustainable and climate change, where there was a lot of technology innovation, a lot of new stuff coming to market, new evolution of things. So there was a very short gap between research and then implementation. And I got fascinated by this. I got fascinated by the fact that there was this huge problem statement, climate change, and then there was lots of work to develop the technology and the innovation needed to somehow solve this problem. So that's really what sort of got me hooked in the first instance. Was like, I feel like there was a fast lane and I was in a slow lane, and I wanted to get on the fast lane because that felt exciting and new and something that was happening at the same time that you were in it.
Yeah. That's so interesting to hear you say that. It feels like the penny's dropped now. Like now I get that, because actually when you talk to so many sustainability leaders, you think, oh, they've always been driven by the planetary crisis, or crises. So to hear actually for you, it's about the technology and the innovation and newness and curiosity. That actually, that explains a lot now.
There is, of course, the element about caring for the planet and love for nature and community. So all of this is certainly part of the mix, but it's not necessarily what the spark for me was.
Yeah, interesting. And now, as we sort of then go through the career that you've had working at all these big household names that I mentioned earlier, as you look through that 15 years, what would you say, what branch of that journey has kind of given you the greatest sense of pride? What's had the greatest impact, do you think? As you look back on that, what are you most proud of?
Look, it's I've been lucky. I've been lucky because I've always worked for organizations that were very much into this, and they really wanted to make a difference. And then I took the opportunity to make a difference, really. But in the sense that the environment or the framework that I had around me helped me with that. And I think there've been lots of incredible projects. So it's hard for me to pinpoint really one single project over the other. I think probably looking back, the bit that I'm more proud of is actually the people engagement and the people side. So the fact that I must have talked really to tens of thousands of people in the last 15 years, about the work that I've been doing and that the organization has been doing. And I think that is really what sort of I look back and I thought, wow, that's made an impact. All these people that have been touched by this conversation, and they understood a little bit more of what we were doing. If I should pinpoint one thing, I think is actually something we did at Lloyds, and at some point we started charging 20p extra if you order a coffee at one of the canteen and you didn't bring a reusable cup. And over time, we accumulated some funding there.
Yeah.
And we used this funding to buy a free light bulb for all the colleagues that wanted to order one. And just a simple light bulb in the hand of colleagues just sparked so many incredible conversation and messages. And I remember a colleague saying that they started with that and ended up with a heat pump in their house. So
Wow.
really, that was probably an example of what I mean by looking back is the people side. And there are examples in the other organization, but I think that probably it's a good visual example of what I mean.
Yes. So when you talk about giving these light bulbs out, it's not really the impact of that as a standalone innovation in itself. It's the conversations that it created and the buzz that it created off the back of it was where the impact was felt, you think?
100%. Yeah, of course. I mean, the light bulb is just a light bulb, but they could have gone into their local supermarket and bought one themselves for £10. But it is really the conversation, really. This piece of technology, this light bulb was dimmable with a Bluetooth. So it's like the geekiness of that and the interest and the comparison to what they have at home. And then that is just like a knock-on effect on the conversation. And that is really, I think, the most powerful thing, certainly the things that I'm more proud of the last 15 years within the organization that I've worked, but also outside in terms of building a network and being active in the community.
Yeah, because so when you said just now, oh, I've probably spoken to tens of thousands of people, and I'm like thinking, yep, I can get that, because every time I meet anybody, almost every time I meet anybody in the sustainability world, and they say, oh, how can I find out a bit more? And I say, oh, well, do you know Matteo? And they're like, yep, I've spoken to Matteo. And it feels like you know everyone.
I really like this concept of the sort of the carbon footprint versus your climate shadow. It's almost like the carbon footprint you can impact in your work or in your daily life is this limited, but your shadow is sort of the sum up of the impact of all the people that you have engaged with. So your shadow is exponentially bigger than your footprint. So I think that is sort of how I see the impact, is really this climate shadow of what you leave behind, and yeah.
I love that. It's a really nice concept. When you think about all those people that you speak to, which sort of, I mean, there'll be different types of people in that group, won't there? Which types of conversation do you think with which types of people give you the best sense of satisfaction and you think have that biggest impact?
I think the people that are generally curious about it, and perhaps they are open-minded. I I think, and those are really the vast majority.
Yeah.
It's like people that let themselves open to change and open to be interested about it. So, um, and I do think that is really the vast majority. You get then perhaps those people that already know a lot, and this maybe just a bit of a validation of what they already know, or like they just want really to talk about the stuff that they already know. And then of course you also get those that don't necessarily want to be engaged. And I'm a big advocate on the fact that we're not really here as a sustainability professional to necessarily convince anyone. So I certainly don't spend hours and hours to trying to convince people that climate change is real, net zero is important, etc., etc. At the end of the day, people make up your mind. I think it's really important to find the common ground, though, on those conversations.
Yeah, and I think it is something that you hear from a lot of sustainability professionals, or certainly those who might be newer to the work, is the sense of the energy that it can take out of you if you're trying to have conversations where you're trying to convince people. So I think, yeah, in getting into that frame of mind that you're in, where it's not your job to convince people, you just lay things out as they are, lay out the facts.
Yeah, and look, that's a big conversation, probably on its own. But I think fundamentally, especially right now, where perhaps all the conversation about sustainability is becoming a little bit more political than it was in the past, it almost becomes something which is ingrained with you. So if you believe in net zero, you support net zero, that becomes almost a defining factor of who you are. And so it's virtually impossible to make someone like to change their mind once they identify with that. It's like try to convince someone from Manchester United that they should support Manchester City because it's more likely to win. It's like they're not going to change because of that, or it's not a rational decision. They just support one team and they will keep doing so. But luckily, I think that is still such a fringe of the conversation, really, and the vast majority of people are actually quite in tune.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's maybe move on into talking and thinking a bit about where the times have got tougher. And when I look at you, and from what I know from our friendship, is that you are a positive and optimistic person, and you seem to weather the storms pretty well. So the question, how have you stayed grounded? What keeps you going through the tough times? How do you stay positive and optimistic?
Yeah, look, I think um, I am optimistic and I am a positive person, but I am like stubbornly positive and optimistic in the sense that as a sustainability professional, and I think this is true really for everybody, we are absolutely overloaded by data and information and scenarios on how difficult the situation is of the planet. And certainly remaining optimistic doesn't mean to be oblivious to all of that. Quite the opposite. It really acknowledging all of that, and for that reason make an effort to remain positive despite all of that. So I think that there is a different type of optimist when it comes to sustainability. There are those that sort of we stay optimism, so we don't do anything because we're just optimists. And then there is like a level of realistic optimism of understanding how difficult is the situation and the fact that we need to take action now, really. I've certainly gone up and downs throughout my career. There have been periods which has been more difficult, others which I certainly felt that the wind was on our favor. But generally speaking, I think that I sort of built a bit of a Swiss Army knife of resilience. So I cannot tell you just one thing, but there are certain a couple of things that have helped me throughout. And each of them has been helpful at some specific period of time, or some of them have been helpful throughout. There was certainly a period of time where I really found comfort in science. It's like I felt like that I needed to know the numbers. I needed to really understand the problem. I really need to understand what was going well and what was not, and really trying to cut through all the noise. So I spent like 2 years where I was always with a climate change book in my hand, or like walking around with a podcast about climate change in my ear, just because I wanted that comfort of information that I understood the problem.
And what do you think that gave you? That comfort? How did it help, do you think?
I think like it helped me really understanding the problem in a more framed way. Understand to a certain extent. When we say like climate change, it means a lot. It could mean everything, or if we talk about sustainability, even more. If we talk about nature, even more. It's almost like there are no boundaries. What is the problem? Is it plastic? Is it biodiversity loss? Is it whatever? And getting those data and those information and like help me giving a structure to understand what is actually the problem, what are the variables, what are we actually trying to solve, and what part am I playing into that? Because that helped me understanding that yes, I'm focusing on one thing, and this is part of a bigger picture. But I understand the bigger picture. It's like working in a company and only knowing your objectives without knowing the overall strategy. All right. So for me, it was important to understand the overall strategy and the overall missions and where this was going. So that is really what I was looking for.
And it sounds like it helps keep you focused. Because if you've got the kind of the core problem statement and the core data and the core science in the front of your mind, then you can make sure that what you're doing is all directed towards that effort, or at least as far as possible. And it helps, I think, with that focus, because in this world there is so much, as you've said, there are so many different facets to the problem. There's so many different ideas, some more impactful than others. So it sounds like it helps with that focus.
Yes, it helped. It helps to navigate the ambiguity of work in a sustainability role. I think so. It helps giving that structure and that framework. So that is certainly something that I've used when I needed it. I think the other thing that certainly helped me is changing my own narrative, because really lots of my work and certainly when I stepped into a more senior role throughout my career, and when I started to engage broader, so outside of the company, there has been a lot of storytelling, really, either to trying to get buy-in from the leaders or to tell the story of what we were doing, engaging people within and without outside of the organization. And I found that at some point I got a little bit almost like victim of my own narrative. So when you started to talk about climate change as a doom, then you almost become part of the same level of negativity. And so this goes back to the proactive effort to remain positive. And these days, you will never hear me talking about sea level rising or mass migration or desertification. It's just stuff that I don't talk about, not because I don't believe them or I'm not informed about it. It's just because I really believe that is not what motivates people to action. We talked about it for the last 40 years. What I like to talk about is how good the world could look like if we do the things that we need to do, and what is our shared interest on that. It could be lower energy bills. It could be like a safer street. It could be like a nicer park down the road, fresher air in your street, whatever. I really like to focus on those points because I think those are the selling points. And to a certain extent, the narrative has then uplifted myself as well in the way that I approach this. So it's almost like it's a positive catch-22 in the sense that you get into this circle of, okay, I talk about the positive, and so I feel better about it. So that is certainly something that has helped me. And
that's so interesting, because where you focus your thoughts, where you focus your speech, that's that's where you that leads you down that path. And that's where your energy focuses. So I can completely see that talking a lot about the positives, the benefits, and avoiding exploration in too much depth of the doom and the negativity, it just reinforces that positive belief system really in yourself. Do you ever find yourself, do you ever have to give yourself a talking to, or do you ever catch yourself internally going down that path of doom and negativity? Or
it does happen sometimes, but I found that with time that has become less and less part of me. I just get very excited about the positive and very bored of repeating the negative narrative. Just because, probably because I am really overly exposed to the negative narrative. I mean, if I open my LinkedIn or my email or whatever, I'm just I've got 20 reports to read that is going to tell you how bad the things are. So I see that noise is always there, but because it's real and because it's really there is a crisis happening. And so that's why I said at the beginning that I really think that my optimism is a realistic optimist. I decide to remain optimist, but not because I'm sort of negating that any of this happening. I'm as aware as I could be of all this stuff.
yeah, I mean, when I was, I guess, more on the front line of sustainability work, I got to a point where I couldn't and wouldn't open those emails, and I wouldn't read the reports. And at times it wasn't a particularly good idea, because there was things in the reports that I probably ought to have known. And people would catch me out sometimes and be like, oh, what do you think of this report? And I'd be like, oh, I don't know, haven't read it. But I really had to force myself to stay away from it. Are you okay to go in there and read the reports and engage with it, or do you just keep it at arm's length?
I would certainly engage with them, and I would, if I read the news about some things that are certainly not pointing in the right direction, I will delve into the details and I will want to know. But I don't let that then dictate the narrative or how I feel about it. If I can, there will be days where I cannot, but generally speaking, that's what I try to do, really.
And I wonder if that focus on the solutions and the innovation and the technology and your interest in that you talked about at the start, I wonder if that helps too, because you've got that kind of relentless, I guess, faith in the power of innovation to solve some of these problems as well.
Yeah, and I definitely have faith in innovation and technology. I certainly don't believe that technology is going to get us out of these, and also because I do think that we do have the technology to solve most of the problems that we're facing. But I guess I've talked about that Swiss Army knife of resilience tools. I think the last tool for me, it's really the people. Really, I guess I one of the reaction that I've had from perhaps all the doom or the risk really of becoming quite wary about, well, am I making an impact at all? For me, has actually been being almost like double down in my in my involvement, and that's probably why that is definitely why I do so many extracurricular activity, and because I sit in so many advisory boards, or because I run a local People Planet Pint, and I'm so active in the community or in LinkedIn, etc., because the reality is that what energizes me is to see how many people are really working full on, very smart people working full on to trying to find a solution and to move the conversation forward. So to a certain extent, yes, I do read something, I do read a report which points on one direction, and I see that. But then on the other side, I see 1,000 people on my LinkedIn feed talking about the great stuff that they're doing, and then is that almost like counterbalance, and in fact, beats up the negative news very often. So I think that I certainly find energy in people and in their passion and in their activism, whatever that form that takes.
Yeah, it's one thing I've always admired about you, is that you do get stuck into the community and you do make time for those connections and those relationships, and adding value to the broader industry conversations, or the whole kind of piece. How do you make time for it all? Like, how do you do those things without allowing them to completely exhaust you and burn you out?
Well, I am selective in the sense that there are some things that naturally I have to say no if I feel that I am overstretched. And there have been periods of time where, for personal reason or work reason, I just couldn't take care of this other stuff, and I'll just like gently pull out. But I find that if anything, these things actually give me strength and more focus in what I'm doing. So it's almost like that. Yes, you may be cutting an hour here and there of your time to support other initiatives that you're working on, but then actually. Then, when you go back to your main task, you are more energized, more productive, more focused, and so you're actually delivering double what you would have if you perhaps had 8 hours to do it rather than 7. So, I don't really see it as a I don't really see it as a giveaway of my time. So I do really see it as something that is enhancing my work and my impact, really. So it's certainly I give, but I also take from any of these, and it may be because I build a stronger network, because I then get to spend time with people that I admire and that they know a lot more than I do, and so there is always. There is always something that I take away from this. And also, if I look back, lots of my successes on my perhaps core job or my career somehow have got a dotted line into something that I have done as an extracurricular activity. So the two things like lift each other up, I think.
Yeah, and I can just really see that surrounding yourself with like-minded people, energetic, positive people, gives you that energy and focus to bring back to work. And yeah, just thinking about what you said about your carbon shadow and that impact, and that's such a driving force for you. I can see that makes so much sense, that's what you would spend time doing, that's where you would focus your energy. And this is about, really, I guess, your thoughts of advice for others. So what seeds of wisdom would you plant for others following in your footsteps, or in your carbon shadow, let's say?
Yeah, look, I don't know. I think everybody will sort of find what works for them. Clearly, I've been lucky to find what works for me, and that is not necessarily something that will work for everybody. But I think what is becoming increasingly important, if either you work in sustainability, or you're planning to work in sustainability, or you just really want to become more fluent in talking about sustainability, it's really articulating the value that it brings. I think that 10 years ago the conversation was very simple, or much more simple than today, and articulating the value was as simple as to say, okay, we're swapping this lighting with some more efficient one. Payback is 4 years. That's the value gone. Now it's much more complex, and to really articulate the value, and you need to branch out to people within the organization that were not necessarily on your top priority list before. So risk, audit, compliance, legal. So you need to really become friends with these people to really be able to articulate the value that a sustainability agenda or sustainability conversation can bring in. So that's certainly from a working perspective, but also from just a social perspective, that talking to your friends at the pub about sustainability cannot really be about the ice cap is melting. That is not really the point, or the selling point. The conversation needs to gravitate around the value that the net zero or sustainability work gets to people in their life, which could be, I don't know, more money for the NHS, less people on the queue, safer street, whatever that is. So I think articulating the value is really the skill that people in sustainability needs to develop to be effective, and people that care about sustainability needs to develop to talk with their circle about it. And then I think the second thing that I always say is really to make friends, and this is specifically if you work in sustainability, because the reality is that if you work in sustainability in a large organization, you may be lucky, you may have a team, a small team, but it's not a one person job. I mean, the idea is fundamentally that sustainability becomes spread across the organization, and to do that you need to really branch out and spend time to talk to people and talk to suppliers and talk to leaders and really make friends. So it can feel lonely if you are the only one in your organization, and that's why you sort of get out and perhaps mix with peers and you make friends in other organizations. But otherwise, within the organization, you really need to build up your network. So I think, spending time on the technical side is important, but the value and the communication and the networking is really part of the job.
Yeah, and that is such a theme that you've really been talking about the whole time, where, we've said your carbon shadow, the people that you talk to in and out of work and in the detail of the initiatives, but also in the broader sense, that's where your impact lies, but it's also where your success lies as well, really, and it's where your resilience lies. So it serves all these purposes. It's how you get the work done, but it's also how you stay the course as well, I think. And it also is the work.
It is. I mean, fundamentally, the bottom line of all this conversation for me is we have got the technology that we need to solve the problem. What we really need to get better at is to sell this technology and the value of these technologies, and to get people on board by telling a story that people want to hear. So we spend lots of time developing a technology. That's fine. Now we should spend the equal amount of time to develop ourselves on how we talk to people about it.
Yeah. And coming back to the innovation and the technology, is that still what drives you? Is that still what excites you about the work, or is it now more about the people involved, would you say?
It does still excite me. So I'm still a geek, and when I see something innovative, then I need to know more, and that certainly still excites me. But what energizes me these days is the people and their action and the passion, and to see how many amazing stuff people are working on. So definitely today is the people that sort of makes a good day for me, is the interaction with the people.
Yeah, that's such a lovely sentiment to, I guess, to draw our conversation to a close, really. You start with the technology, but really it's a people game, and it is the work to kind of make those friends, make those relationships, but they also sustain you and bring you energy. And I think it's a good lesson, actually, if you're, I guess, looking at taking on additional responsibilities or getting involved in boards or, the extracurriculars, to hear what you're saying, Matteo, about actually this is helping me achieve my impact. This is bringing me energy. This is bringing me positivity. This is helping me surround myself with like-minded people. So yeah, it's not a draw from your time. It helps in a really positive way. So I think that's a great little takeaway there. So yeah, let's draw it to an end, and it's been so lovely to talk to you, and I guess it's like a different way that we've ever talked before, you and me, really, to just really hear about your story and kind of your reflections and the themes has been lovely. So yeah, thank you for coming on Rooted. Have you found it okay?
No, it was brilliant, and thank you for having me. And yes, and yeah, it was lovely. Thank you.
Well, I hope you enjoyed listening to that conversation with Matteo as much as I enjoyed having it. It was so good to hear him talk about his career in the round and how he manages the tough times. And I always really enjoy talking to sustainability leaders about impact and thinking about that longer term legacy. And I don't know about you, but when I started hearing him talking about 20p levies on coffee cups and light bulbs, I was thinking, where is he going with this? Because it didn't sound like the most impactful thing that I ever heard. But actually, what he's saying about his climate shadow and that impact of those tens of thousands of conversations that he's having with people through his career, that's the thing that brings him the most pride. That's the area that he sees he's making the most impact. That really hit home, I think. I've always seen Matteo and the way that he cultivates his network and the community around him, the way he contributes to the broader sustainability profession. I've always admired it, but sometimes I've seen it as something that, God, that must be exhausting. I'm not sure I could do that. And actually, again, just hearing him talk about how it's giving him energy, it's giving him just as much as he's putting into it. And it's his one main pillars, really, of resilience and how he keeps going through the tough times. I think that was just so powerful to hear him say that. And that Swiss Army knife of resilience, those different layers and levels that he adopts in terms of his mindset, his approach to framing things, his focus on the science. I think that's just so important and interesting. So I would love to hear what you thought of that conversation. If anything resonated with you, let me know. And thank you for listening. Well, thank you for joining me on my yellow bench for this episode of Rooted, the human side of sustainability leadership. I hope you're taking away a few roots to steady you, maybe a branch or two to lean on, and hopefully at least one small seed of wisdom to plant in your own leadership journey. Now, if you'd like more conversations like this, you can follow Rooted wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're interested about the coaching work that I do with senior sustainability leaders, you'll find me on LinkedIn or at yellowbenchcoaching.com. Until next time, stay grounded, keep growing, and don't forget to take that seat when you need it. Bye-bye.